He made a deal with the devil, now he has to spend the rest of eternity in a living hell. Today's story is from a 2023 movie called Renfield. Spoilers ahead, enjoy! The film opens at a support group for people in abusive relationships. Among them is Robert Montague Renfield. He takes us back to the beginning of his story. Centuries ago, he was a lawyer set to make a life-changing deal with a count that would greatly benefit his family. The count in question was none other than the Prince of Darkness, Dracula. After proving to be a useful assistant, Dracula made Renfield his servant, allowing him to be immortal and gaining super strength and speed when he consumes bugs. Along the line, a priest and a hunter came and tried to kill Dracula using a salt barrier to trap him, but the Count convinced Renfield to free him, adding that he would also be imprisoned for helping him kill people if he were to die. Giving it a thought, Renfield decided to break the salt ring sealing Dracula, allowing him to escape, turning into smoke and causing the priest to blow into chunks. He then goes for the other hunter but is exposed to sunlight, causing him to burn and allowing him to engulf the hunter in flames until Renfield puts the fire out, leaving Dracula looking like a pretty little barbecue. They then have to relocate continuously to throw other hunters off their trail. Renfield brings them to New Orleans where Dracula can heal and grow back to full power, and in order to do that, he has to be on a steady diet of fresh human blood. Over time, Renfield has grown weary and exhausted of bringing victims for his master. Meanwhile, back at the church, one of the women from the emotional support group, Caitlin, discusses her junkie boyfriend, Mitch, and how much damage he has brought to her fragile heart. At that moment, Renfield decides that he would feel less bad about delivering criminals and bad people to Dracula instead of innocents. He finds Mitch, Caitlin's ex-boyfriend, and his goons at a warehouse, where he knocks out two of them, but Mitch is brutally killed by a hitman named Apache Joe for stealing cocaine from the Lobos, a notorious drug family. Renfield gets sliced across the stomach by Joe in the heat of a fight, but then he consumes a bug and uses his superhuman strength to punch Joe's head off his shoulders, sending it flying toward the car of local gangster Teddy Lobo. Terrified Teddy flees the scene as he sees Renfield standing over Joe's remains. Later that night, Officer Rebecca Quincy and her partner Chris were seen doing drunk driving checks when Teddy roughly drives near the scene. Rebecca recognizes him, and since he's got a ton of cocaine in his car, Teddy begins to drive away. Rebecca shoots out his tires, so he starts running until she hurls her baton at his head to knock him out. Unfortunately, the Lobos gang hires a good lawyer to get Teddy out before he can spill the beans on his criminal family's operation. Rebecca was so upset about this because that was her only chance to put the Lobos out of business for good. You see, the case is personal to Rebecca because the Lobos murdered her father, who was a decorated captain on the force. Her sister Kate works for the FBI and also wants to take the Lobos down, but she reminds Rebecca they need to be professional and not let their anger get the better of them. On the other hand, Renfield brings Mitch's friends and Joe's headless corpse to a horribly weak and decayed-looking Dracula, but he rejects them because they are junkies and had drugs in their bloodstream. He demands that Renfield bring him innocents like nuns or cheerleaders. Angry Dracula slices Renfield where Joe cut him, almost disemboweling him to teach him a lesson before giving him his blood, which has healing properties. The next day, Teddy returns to his mother, Bella, the leader of the Lobos gang. She tells Teddy that they need to get rid of Rebecca before she can take down their operation. Later that night, Renfield goes to a nearby restaurant to reluctantly scout out innocents for Dracula, but is caught off guard just as Rebecca and Chris shows up, since a pen they found at a crime scene, which is the same one Renfield used to stab Joe, came from the same restaurant. Along the line, Teddy and his fellow Lobos goons show up also to kill Rebecca. They come in guns blazing, causing everyone at the bar to hide for safety. Teddy threatens Rebecca to give up and work alongside him and his mom, else he will be forced to shoot her, but she tells him to pull the trigger before she ever decides to do what he says. She then taunts Teddy, saying he's probably never shot anyone in his life as a gangster. Few seconds before he pulls the trigger, Renfield eats a fly and tackles him, giving Rebecca a chance to fight. Renfield severs limbs and stabs Lobos with forks, killing all of them except Teddy, who gets away. Rebecca thanks Renfield for his help, and he appears to fall in love with her. Renfield goes back to his lair, where Dracula has claimed some victims to slightly restore his regular form. He then shows Renfield that he plans to dominate the world once he grows to full power, hoping to create an army of vampires to do his bidding. The next day, Renfield returns to the group session where he talks about his toxic relationship with Dracula, simply referring to him as his boss. The group encourages Renfield to take steps to improve his life separate from Dracula, which includes finding his own apartment and creating his own happiness. Back at the station, Rebecca brings in all the witnesses from the restaurant to give testimonies, but she knows that there are corrupt cops on the force that are on the Lobos payroll, so they have been tampering with evidence. Renfield shows up to give a testimony, along with a bouquet of flowers for Rebecca. She later brings the bloody pen to Kate to process as evidence because she was the only person she could trust at the time. Back at the clubhouse, Bella sends Teddy and the other Lobos to go after Renfield after what he did to her subjects at the bar. They traced him up to the lair, where Dracula munches on all of them except for Teddy. When he reveals that he is there for Renfield to settle up their unfinished business, Dracula becomes enraged and feels betrayed by his servant. The next day, Dracula shows up at Renfield's apartment, entering because he has a welcome mat in front of the door. He chastises Renfield for abandoning him and trying to be independent. Dracula also tells him he's the real monster for abandoning his wife and daughter to become his servant. Renfield tries to counter him using tactics from a self-worth book given to him at the support group, but Dracula takes it and sees the sticker revealing the location of the church where the group meets. Realizing what that meant for his friends, Renfield runs after him to warn them. He gets to the church before Dracula and tries to warn the group and get them out, but once Dracula arrives, group leader Mark mistakenly invites him inside. He reveals himself to the group before proceeding to slaughter everyone and feed off them. He taunts Renfield before leaving. Shortly after, Rebecca and Chris arrive at the scene, arresting Renfield thinking he killed everyone, because he was covered with blood. As Rebecca takes Renfield away in cuffs, a bunch of cop cars pull up along with Bella and the Lobos, confirming Rebecca's suspicions that the cops are working with the criminals, including Chris and Captain Browning. Browning tries to convince Rebecca to join them, but she shoots a transformer to distract everyone and take a chance to escape with Renfield. Rebecca gets shot in the shoulder but makes it out. Later, Renfield brings Rebecca to his apartment to hide. He remains cuffed so she can trust him, and he confesses that he worked for Dracula for centuries. Rebecca then gets a call from Kate, who confirms that the DNA on the pen is connected to murders all across the world for decades. Renfield and Rebecca proceed to leave the apartment, but a SWAT team of corrupt cops begins to storm the complex to catch them. Renfield eats ants and proceeds to annihilate the cops, tearing them to shreds, ripping them limb from limb, stomping heads, ripping a man's face off, and even impaling two men with severed arms. Rebecca is horrified but thankful for being saved. Meanwhile, Dracula returns to Teddy and agrees to join forces with the Lobos to help the Count amass an army for his plans for world conquest. Teddy brings Dracula to meet his mother, where he decapitates Browning and reveals himself to Bella, who is impressed. Renfield and Rebecca were seen outside in public as he tells her about his past and how he regrets leaving his wife and daughter behind when he wanted to mostly benefit himself. Dracula then telepathically communicates with Renfield to taunt him while Rebecca tries to call her sister, Kate, only to have Bella answer. She tells Rebecca that they have Kate, so she and Renfield arm themselves and get ready to take on Dracula and the Lobos. The two arrive at the Lobos building and find that Teddy and the other Lobos have been turned into vampires with superpowers. Rebecca rushes to find Kate while Renfield battles the Lobos, killing all of them until only Teddy is left. Teddy boasts about his powers, but Renfield tells him it's a curse. Teddy almost beats him good until Renfield grabs a bug and eats it. He kicks Teddy so hard that he spews blood and violently shits himself to death. Rebecca got to their secret lair only to discover that Kate, her sister, is already dead, being brutally beaten by the Lobos. Dracula attempts to persuade her to join him so he can use his blood to revive Kate. Renfield arrives to try and discourage her, and while Rebecca appears willing to join, she really just tries to open the blinds to expose Dracula to sunlight. He turns into bats and flies away until the duo catches up to him. He knocks Renfield out and tries to kill Rebecca, but she shoots Dracula in the foot, causing him to bleed on Renfield and give him the boost he needs. Renfield rips out Dracula's fangs and smashes his face in. Rebecca then traps the Count in a ring of cocaine after saying the incantation she found online. Renfield and Rebecca then proceed to beat him to a pulp before ripping him to shreds and disposing of his remains in cement and throwing them into a sewer. The two use Dracula's blood to revive Kate, and she and Rebecca arrest Bella. The sisters then feel they made their father proud now that they put his killer away. Renfield later uses Dracula's blood to revive the support group, who are thankful but also traumatized by being dead. Renfield and Rebecca are now close friends, and he prepares for a new life as a free man. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this recap to support the channel. It might seem like a simple click to you, but it means a lot to us. Thank you for watching.